You know, for as long as any of us have been lifting weights, there's been this one sacred rule. If you want to build stronger tendons, you have to lift heavy, period. But what if that's not the whole story? What if there's a lighter path to getting stronger? Well, today we're going to dive into some absolutely fascinating research that pretty much turns that old rule right on its head. So it's a really simple question, right? How do you build stronger tendons? And it's always felt like it had a simple answer. Whether you're an athlete, you're coming back from an injury, or you're just trying to stay healthy and active, having strong tendons is absolutely crucial for moving force from your muscles to your bones. For decades, this has been the undisputed mantra. To make those tendons tougher, thicker, more resilient, you had to put them under some serious heavy load. But again, what if there was another way? Okay, so to really get why this new research is such a big deal, we first have to understand the old gold standard. This heavy lifting rule is built on the idea that our tendons, just like our muscles, only adapt and get stronger when you really put them under significant mechanical stress. And look, this isn't just some gym bro wisdom, right? This is backed by some really solid science. A huge meta-analysis back in 2015 came to the conclusion that to really improve key things like tendon stiffness, you need to be working with at least 70% of your 1 rep max. You know, the absolute most weight you could possibly lift just one time. The thinking was that anything lighter just didn't create a strong enough signal to make the tendon adapt. So basically, the science just confirmed what everyone already thought. Heavy has always been king. All right, but now let's bring in the challenger to this long-held belief. It's a method that seems to completely ignore the lift heavy rule, and yet, as you're about to see, it produces some truly remarkable results. It's called blood flow restriction training, or BFR for short. The idea is pretty simple, actually. You wrap this special cuff, it kind of looks like a blood pressure cuff, around the top of your arm or leg. You inflate it to a specific pressure that just partially restricts blood flow, and then you do your exercises with very light weights. And I mean, these two ways of training could not be more different. On the one side, you've got traditional training, super heavy weights, low reps. And on the other, you've got this low-load BFR. You're using ridiculously light weights, like we're talking just 20 to 35% of your max. But you're doing it for a lot of reps, all while wearing that cuff. They're like polar opposites. You know what's really fascinating about this? The scientists who ran the study, even they were skeptical. Based on everything we just talked about, that heavy load rule, they figured that these light BFR workouts would be a total bust for tendons. They hypothesized that the mechanical stress just wouldn't be enough to trigger any real changes. I mean, talk about setting the stage for a classic scientific surprise. So, they had their hypothesis, right? They basically thought the light weights wouldn't work, and they designed this really cool experiment to see what would actually happen when these two very different methods went head-to-head for 14 weeks. Okay, the setup was pretty simple. First, at week 0, they measured everyone's Achilles tendon and calf muscles to get a starting point. Then, for 14 weeks, they split them into 3 groups. One did the heavy lifting, one did the light load BFR, and a third control group just didn't exercise. Then at the end, they measured everybody again to see what changed. Whoa, okay. This chart looks a little intense, but the main point is actually super simple. To make sure the results were legit, they got 55 healthy guys and randomly put them into one of those 3 groups. This randomization part is so important in science because it makes sure that any differences you see at the end are actually because of the training and not because of some other random factor. All right, so fast forward 14 weeks. The experiment's over, they've got all the data. And this is where things get really, really interesting, and where that original hypothesis gets totally challenged. So first up, let's talk muscle growth. And here, both the heavy load group and the light load BFR group saw their calf muscles get bigger by around 8 to 9%. Now, this part wasn't a huge shocker. We've known for a while that BFR is awesome for building muscle. But this is where we get our first big surprise. When they actually looked at the Achilles tendon, they found that it got thicker in both training groups. And in fact, the light load BFR group saw a slightly bigger increase on average. Just to remind you, according to the old rules, this just wasn't supposed to happen with weights that light.
And here it is, the main event, the absolute headline finding of the whole study. Tendon stiffness, which is really the key measure of how strong a tendon is, how well it can do its job, it went through the roof in both groups. Just look at how all those individual dots climb from before the training to after, and the gains were so similar you couldn't tell them apart statistically.
Let's actually put a number on that because it's pretty staggering. The heavy lifters saw an incredible 40.7% increase in their tendon stiffness. That is a massive adaptation, and it's exactly what the old rulebook would have predicted. But now get this, the light load BFR group, the ones lifting those too light to matter weights, saw a 36.1% increase. That is a huge, huge gain, and statistically, it's pretty much identical to what the heavy lifters got. So this table here really just pulls it all together. You can see it clear as day. Both training groups got big gains in muscle size, tendon thickness, and that all-important tendon stiffness. Meanwhile, the control group, nothing. The takeaway here is just, it's undeniable. Even though they used completely different weights, both methods delivered amazing results for the whole muscle tendon unit. Okay, so what does this all mean? A light load technique can build up your tendons just as well as classic heavy lifting. This is way more than just a cool piece of science. This has some seriously profound, real-world implications. You know, the researchers themselves put it perfectly in the paper. This is a potential game changer for anyone who can't, or maybe just shouldn't be lifting heavy, but still really needs to strengthen their muscles and their tendons. I mean, just think about who this could help. You've got patients recovering from surgery where putting a heavy bar on their back is just not an option. You've got older adults who want to get stronger but really need to protect their joints. Or how about athletes right in the middle of their season who need a low-impact way to keep their tendons healthy without getting beat up? This opens up a powerful new tool for all of them. So look, this one study really flips our whole understanding of how tendons adapt on its head. It proves that heavy mechanical stress isn't the only way to get the job done. Turns out the metabolic stress you create with BFR is an incredibly powerful trigger for growth all on its own. So you have to wonder, are we looking at the future of physical therapy right here? The evidence suggests we very well could be.